Cannabis contains about 500 different chemical compounds. Most people are familiar with THC, the main chemical in cannabis that gets you high, but another important chemical in the plant is cannabidiol, or CBD. Along with THC, CBD is frequently used for medical purposes. The doses of these cannabinoids vary depending on the type of cannabis and how it's consumed. Many people assume that all cannabis is the same, but like wine and hard liquor, the sheer number of options, especially in a legal market, can be overwhelming. Despite the countless strains, all cannabis can be categorized into three main species: sativa, indica, and ruderalis. Many familiar with the plant have heard of cannabis sativa, known for its energetic, stimulating head highs, and cannabis indica, known for its relaxing body highs. But there are also hybrids, which are typically part sativa and part indica. Hybrids are common and offer a body-head high combination that varies depending on the particular strain. Finally, cannabis ruderalis isn't discussed, grown, or consumed nearly as often as the other varieties because ruderalis plants don't get very large and their flowers contain low levels of THC. Each of these cannabis species comes in a plethora of strains with their own effects, tastes, smells, and levels of THC and CBD. Once the type of cannabis is chosen, it can be consumed and prepared in several different ways. Smoking the plant is the most common method of consumption because it's easy and inexpensive. Additionally, pot's effects are almost instantaneous when smoked, and it's obvious when you've had enough. Vaporized cannabis has the same rapid onset and ease of titration while removing possible negative effects of smoking in people with respiratory problems. Another common method of consuming cannabis is oil, which can be eaten, put into capsules, vaporized, or smoked. Oil is typically used for medical purposes or by cannabis enthusiasts seeking a better high. A less common way to use cannabis is topically with cream or ointment. These methods don't cause any psychoactive effects, but work to treat some medical conditions. Furthermore, cannabis edibles tend to cause a stronger and longer lasting high than smoking. While the effects of smoked cannabis last about 1 to 3 hours, the effects of eating cannabis can last about 6 to 10 hours. According to Mitch Earlywine, a professor of psychology at the State University of New York at Albany, eaten cannabis gets metabolized by the liver, so delta-9 THC becomes 11-hydroxy-THC, which passes the blood-brain barrier more rapidly and has more of a psychedelic effect than standard THC. Smoked or vaporized cannabis bypasses the liver and doesn't create the same 11-hydroxy-THC. According to Paul Armentano, deputy director of NORML, they're not going to suffer any long-term potential harm, toxicity, or lethal overdose. It's not as if people are going to the hospital and having their stomachs pumped after using cannabis. What happens to your body? To put it simply, the cannabinoids travel through your bloodstream to your brain, where the THC fits into receptors that are part of the brain's natural endocannabinoid system. This system helps control an array of functions, like emotions, memory, pain sensitivity, and appetite. Humans and many animals normally produce their own endocannabinoids that fit into these receptors, so by imitating their activity, THC can dramatically alter the same functions. THC also increases dopamine and other neurotransmitter activity in the brain. Dopamine is released naturally in response to food, sex, and other enjoyable things. Cannabis affects everyone differently, and highs can vary greatly depending on tolerance, dosage, method of consumption, strain used, state of mind, and environment. It's also important to keep in mind that while cannabis may alter users in profound ways, the effects are temporary. Commonly, short-term cannabis effects include euphoria, relaxation, altered perception, feelings of well-being, and increased appreciation for music and other arts. Introspection, dry mouth, and increased senses, appetite, creativity, and libido. Memory disruptions, a warped sense of time, and paranoia are also possible short-term effects, especially for infrequent cannabis users. According to a 2012 study, THC can also increase heart rate. However, the sample size was a mere 16 male subjects, which is too small to reach an accurate conclusion. Other scientific studies have been done on the acute effects of cannabis. Like studies about the long-term effects of weed, potential harm is the focus of most of these studies. For example, a 2013 study found that all cannabis doses caused time over and underestimation in novice users. Conversely, the researchers concluded heavy users do not experience these negative temporal effects. Furthermore, infrequent cannabis users often experience disruptions in memory and spatial navigation, a result of the high number of cannabinoid receptors in the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex. Two separate studies by researchers at the University of Western Ontario and Vanderbilt University suggest that cannabis may trigger or mute anxiety and fear in users via cannabinoid receptors in the amygdala. Once again, this effect is caused by cannabinoid receptors in the brain, more specifically in the hypothalamus, which regulates appetite. In 2014, researchers in France concluded that THC causes users to smell and taste more intensely while mimicking the sensation of starvation in their brains. Additionally, researchers who published a study in 2012 found that dopamine created from THC acts on cannabinoid receptors in a part of the brain called the nucleus accumbens, increasing the pleasure of eating while high. Another positive phenomenon often associated with cannabis use is increased creativity, though the evidence is largely anecdotal. A 2001 study found that using cannabis caused no increase in creativity, while a 2012 study by scientists in the UK found the opposite. Cannabis's effects vary depending on many factors, and novice users should pay careful attention to dosage, especially when eating cannabis. Smoking or vaporizing weed is a better method of consumption for a first-timer. It's also important to remember that any unpleasant effects from too much cannabis are temporary.